Hi, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of Uniquely Me with Simone Stewart. Guys, this evening I have with me a very good friend, very interesting friend as well. We're going to be digging into the whole matter of wealth. I don't know about you, but whenever it comes to talking about money, I don't know if it's the banker in me, but I just absolutely love talking about money. But it's really not just about money. We're talking about family this evening. We're talking about generational wealth. We're talking about multiple streams of income. We're looking at what the Bible has to say about it. And you know what is most interesting? Is hearing it from a man. And so this evening I have with me Marlon Walcott. Well, this is no ordinary individual. He is a project manager. Well, let me back up. A project expert, right? All the various certifications you could be thinking about. He has it. He's also a lecturer, teacher, he's a designer, creator, innovator. Listen, if you spend 5 minutes in his presence, I can tell you he's going to transform you because he doesn't do idle talk. He leaves you challenged. But without me having to toot all his horns, I will allow him to say it for himself. Marlon, welcome to Uniquely Me.
Hi, Simone. Thanks for having me. Yes, you're right. I'm a triple certified project manager, but I like to tell everyone that of all the roles that I have, being a father is the most important one. And
Oh,
so we're working on some projects to look at generational wealth and looking at how we can pass on, you know, our expertise to the younger generation. So thanks for having me, Simone. Simone from the Stewart Estate. Good to have you.
we're going to talk about that estate thing a little bit. I can't wait for us to get there because, yes, we need to. What comes from our mouth really
Mm.
dictates what happened. And I wonder
That's
if you have a perspective on that because, Marlon, I'm very mindful these days as it relates to how I speak, right? What we put out in the atmosphere is almost like a seed, and
mm.
you kind of reap what you sow. What's your take on that?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I've learned, and I've been teaching young people for a long time. My first job was as a teacher, a maths and physics teacher at St. George's College, and then I've done a couple sold out summer camps teaching STEM. And what I've seen with young people is, you know, when you ask, especially the men, the boys, when you ask them, what do you want to be? They look down on the ground and they talk very low. But as soon as you tell them that, one of the exercises we like to do is to tell them that they are an estate, you know? So that's why I said Simone from the Stewart estate. With the kids, we did the same thing.
Yeah.
And when they hear that they're an estate, they start to think differently. Their voice gets deeper, their chest comes out. And, we have to be careful of what we tell our kids because they might be the one that can help us to create a better future, you know?
Yeah, I want to dive into the estate thing a bit, but just before I do that, so let's talk about the matter of estate,
Hmm.
Marlon. Sometimes persons think about it. Well, for me in the banking sector, we hear a lot about estate planning, but you put a spin to it that I absolutely love. And so you refer to me as Simone from the Stewart estate, and
Hmm.
I'm talking to Marlon from the Walcott estate. Bring
Exactly.
it into perspective for us so we understand what this whole estate thing means. And then,
Okay.
we kind of just put it out there.
Well, last week I met with, one of my future CFOs. He's worked at Wall Street, and he explained that we are an estate, and it is biblical in the sense that when you look at, Ecclesiastics and what it talk about us having five, six, seven, eight different sources of income, when we start looking at ourselves as an estate and our children as part of that estate and our marriages and it's all about building more than just, love, but also building a future, then it brings a different perspective. And so that's why we look at estate. What happening though is that a lot of us, what's happening is that we depend on our salary and then we might reach the age of retirement if we're fortunate, and we just don't have enough coming in to support us. And so by looking at yourself as an estate, you look at more than just your salary, but also how your family can all bond together to create additional cash flows. And you work at a bank, so you understand that basically a bank is saying to us as individuals, go and find your cash flow, and the bank will help you to buy your house. The bank will help you to get a car you want. It will give you a loan if you can prove that you have a steady cash flow. And so that's where we come up with the idea of the estate and looking at yourself as that.
I like it. I like it. I like it. Now, when we think about estate, in a broader sense, we
Mm,
think about we think about the houses and not leaving out the S. We think about the cars, we think about the monies. We kind of think about the asset base. The
mhm.
average man, if you ask me, and when I say man, I mean couples, humans,
Mhm.
have one house, it's our primary residence. We
Right.
may have a car, and the truth is most of us kind of don't have any savings.
Mhm.
How do we build an estate? I heard you said it from starters, when you're teaching in your summer classes, teaching our young men, etc. You talk to them about estate, but where do we start? How do we start? And if you don't mind throwing yourself in there, because you did share with me, you moved 3 times, and each time you had to start from ground zero. 4, same thing. You had to
Yep.
start from ground zero. So help us to understand how does one build an estate and your own story.
I'm glad you asked that question. While we were working in Toronto, we had a meeting. My family was there, and I met Anthony Jugman, as I said, and a couple of group. We call ourselves the Black T-shirt group. So we went and we meet and we decided to go for a walk. And just as we came out to the Hilton and then turned a corner on University, I think it was University Drive, we saw a guy on the road and he was hugging the heater coming out of the floor. And, both Auntie and I looked at ourselves because we just spoke about that. The fact that for most of us, we're just three, four, five paychecks from being close to being on the road. You know, poverty is just around the corner, and so we need to have multiple streams of income. So my friend traveled a lot. So in Japan, the octopus is seen as the key creature, and that's because it has 8 different hands, and that's coming again from the Bible, where Solomon told us that we need to have at least 7 to 8 different streams of income. And so we looked at a model called the BCG model, which
Mhm.
would look at taking a question mark, like an idea, turning it into what we call a star, and then turn it into a cash cow. And that's what businesses do, you know. He's coming from Wall Street. If you look at Apple started off with well, they weren't making any money, so they came up with the iPod, you know. Then they use the iPad money to create the iPhone, and then they keep going, keep building out these new income streams until they're one of the companies that have so much cash. So as it relates to personally, we have to and I'm working on a few myself. We have to take our basic idea and turn it into the star and the cash flow. And that's the BCG model that's used by businesses. So in the same way, we're trying to work it through and working with so some of my friends were looking at using sunlight and hydroponics to create to make food. I am looking at this summer starting, well, we started the website already, but Walcott and Sons is a summer camp that anyone can do.
Mhm.
We'd provide the content and you just provide a space. And so trying to create cash flow. From there, then you can go into real estate. Then you can go into stocks. And you see what's happening with stocks now because it's a long-term investment. But from there, you can look at not just one house, but multiple houses. But the problem is, where do you start? And so that's
Mhm.
what we're working on with Walcott and Sons and the team to try and help people to get started. You know, if you can
Yeah.
take $1 and make $2, if you can take your time, 9 to 5, but also 5 to 9, you can work on a project that can potentially become a cash cow. That's what Grace Kennedy is doing. That's what most companies are doing when you look at the amount of different portfolios and things they're doing.
You really bring some stuff into perspective. And I guess a lot of us did not see it like that. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching, I'd love to hear from you. What are your thoughts on what you're hearing so far? We all think about we work 8 to 5, the hours are long. We have one paycheck, and we're thinking that the check it can't stretch no more. If it stretch no more, to go bust. But here it is that Marlon is sharing with us the BCG model that a product, a paycheck, you start with there, you start with
Mhm.
the hours after work, just 3 hours or four before
Yeah.
you go to bed and what you could be doing. But Marlon, I don't know if
But
you can.
it's not just that in Simone. There's
Mhm,
also the fact that what's happening now is a lot of the baby boomers are retiring and there's a lot of grandchildren at home. So what if the baby boomer and the grandchild come together and start a business? Mommy and daddy goes to work, go to 9 to 5, but also the kid at home, grandma at home can come together and build out products. And you be surprised, maybe that product, Walcott and Sons, for example, my company, it
mhm.
was a name given to me by my children's grandparents.
Wow.
Grandparents said, "Hey, you're always there with your sons, call it Walcott and Son."
Yeah.
So they have the experience, and the kids are there. They're looking for the experience. The come together of both and looking at the family as an estate will bring about new perspectives. It will change the dining table if we even sit at the dining table these days, but it will change that dining table conversation from worry to hope. And that's what we're working on. And that's what we're seeing happening, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Your paycheck is a cash cow, but it might be that you are maxed out. But
Hmm.
what about the others who are in your household?
Yeah.
Daddy, the children, the grandma. Why can't you come together and build out the estate as well?
Oh my God. I'm
Mm,
I'm loving this. Like literally, I know you and I have talked so often. You
mm,
always leave me challenged, but I guess maybe because I'm sitting down here looking at you eyeball to eyeball, it's
mm,
really connecting.
mm.
I think about the multiple streams of income that I've been able to generate, but not really working them. So let's use for instance, and I think this will help to really bring it home. A few
Sure.
years ago, I was part-time with the bank, and I remember even though I was part-time, we were working full-time hours.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a CEO that after, for me, it was, I think I was at my 16th year mark. And I remember he said, no more overtime. And I remember thinking at this point, while I say, yes, you don't build your life on overtime, 16 years in, hello, I built my life on overtime.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember at this point, I had a baby. I now had a mortgage, right? I had a car payment.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that, listen, it's not going to work. I literally crashed. I literally crashed. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember I started thinking, what am I going to do? I need to start hunting. And I started hunting Marlon.
Mm-hmm.
And I used my hours outside of work. Persons continue to ask me, Simone, how you do so much things? I
Mm-hmm.
use my bathroom time, I use my cooking time, I use my sleeping time. I use every time that I was conscious, I was using it to do something. And so out of that, I generated my ideas. God gave me ideas that I put in the form of a book.
Exactly.
And from the book, my first book, two
Yeah.
of my books, I did not just the hard copy, I did the Kindle version and I did the audio version.
Mm-hmm.
From that, I started, so those were on Amazon. Then I started teaching, helping others to write their book.
Mm-hmm.
And then I created a manual and then I did a workshop. Then I did a course
Nice.
regarding teaching persons how to write their book and stuff. Now, here's the part where I kind of at a full stop now.
Mm-hmm.
I have not, you see, it's wanting to create the things, Marlon. It's wanting to have the estate, but like any real estate in particular, if you don't manage it, take
Mm-hmm.
care of it,
Yeah.
eventually it's going to erode. The grass will grow up,
Yeah.
the building itself will fall apart, etc. And so I think that's where I'm at because I think for me, I've been able to create the platforms for
Right.
multiple streams of income, but I'm not seeing the income like I should. Like, for instance, I don't think I've been maximizing YouTube as I should. I'm going viral now on TikTok, and I don't think, I mean, I have all the numbers to monetize it. I don't think I'm doing that. I have several books out. I have over 18 books out now. I have courses and that kind of thing. I have my voice as a speaker. And so, Marlon, when you
But
talk with somebody like
but
me,
but
talk
at
to
the
me.
same, so yes, you're good at starting a business, right? Well, what you're doing is you're good at being self-employed, right? So you have to figure out, do you want to own the business or operate the business? And
Mm,
what's happening is that you're good at operating and starting a business. But if you look at estate perspective, the the number of family members that you have, each of them could get one of those tasks to do. And so you could say, okay, for example, I'm working now on creating like a home studio and figuring out how to do it. But I call it Alex Studio. Alex is my oldest son. He's only 10, but he
Mhm.
already knows that that's his studio, you know?
Thank
So
you.
it's already built with him in mind. And so um, what you'll find is that there is sometimes one person in the family that's really, really good. But if you put the zeros behind the ones, you'll get $1 million, right? But you need
Mhm.
to have the army behind you. Every time you have a child, every time you create a business, and eventually you hand it over to them. Now, this concept I learned from having Chinese classmates, right?
Mhm.
Um, what would happen is lunchtime, I wouldn't see them. After school, you wouldn't see them. And I always wondered, where are they? And when you check it out, they're gone to operate their business. You know, lunch comes in from one of the business, bring lunch to them. And after the business, they're gone to run their business. Now, it is showing that there is a rise in nowadays in kids coming out with depression and mental health issues, right? There is a rise in that. But the solution to that is to give more chores to our children. And also there's an issue with diet. But in America, they're saying that 1 in 7 child is coming out with a mental health problem. But at the
Mhm.
same time, they're saying that if we give them chores, then they will come out being more balanced. And there's even research in Jamaica that found that kids play pays off and you know, so what's gonna happen? And if you read books, if you read about, for example, Jeff Bezos, he used to go and work on a farm for his father, right? If you look at Mark Zuckerberg, the youngest billionaire they had, he wrote a program for his father who was running a dentist. He was in dentistry, and he wrote the program to send messages back and forth. And so what's happening is that these people who we look at, Elon Musk, he started building a video game when he was 10 or 12, 11 years old, you know? And so when we're coming from the Caribbean where we look at chores as, demeaning and stuff, but chores in the American context for those who are doing really, really well, they are giving their children the responsibility of working in the wholesale, working in the jewelry store, working in doing the website. I remember one of the summer camps that I had, the Chinese lady came in and she said, I am paying for this because I want my son to build a website. So at the end of it, he needs to build a website and I'm paying this fee. And so he learned a skill, but he has somewhere to go. And so as you look at your family, I'm sure you have aunties and yeah, I'm sure you're an auntie and I'm sure you have nieces and nephew. Pull one aside and say, hey, help me to market this book, and they'll learn social media. So what's happening is that you're the one maybe in your family that being blessed with that creativity, but definitely you have people in your family that probably need help that you can pull in into the estate and say, help me and give them their first chance. You know,
You just talked about Walcott and Sons, and I mean we talk about that a lot, and bringing in our children, and by extension the family. But can you dig into it a little bit more regarding what you've been doing specifically? I know you've been creating a number of stuff. You've been the scientist in the lab. Talk a
yeah,
little bit about some of the stuff you've been doing, programs you've been working on, etc.
right. So usually as a project manager, I've worked on multi-million dollar projects, projects that are like during COVID, we built an app that made for a hospital over $100 million. It did well.
Wow.
Um, but while COVID was going on, um, my children were at home with me. My wife, she's a doctor, she had to go to work. The nanny, she couldn't come in because we were on lockdown. And while I was coding, my sons saw me coding for the first time and say, hey, I want to do that, Daddy. And I searched, believe you me, I searched far and wide to find somewhere that could teach my kids how to code the right way. I'm a programmer, so I understand. Part of my master's degree is MIS, so part of it is in computer science. And so I after moving to Canada, because in the Caribbean it's very difficult to get PayPal and Stripe
Mm.
working. So
Mm-hmm.
after moving to Canada, one of the very first things I did was register a company, you know, and wanting a name for it, decided to call it Walcott and Sons, and it's walcottandsons.com. So I'm starting off with the computer science, the computer science, a computer academy. Um, so what I decided to do was I will focus on creating the content for the computer academy, and then I will partner with people who can deliver the program.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so like for example, if you have time, you could run an event where you are in Canada. I have friends in Jamaica. They're looking to run it in Jamaica. The same content, plugged in and everything, but you run it wherever. And I've done it before, and I like that type of thing where you work on an event, you know. If you look at, for example, most of us decide that the product that we're building we need to be there and do it ourselves, you know. But if you look at those who are doing well, Bob Marley, for example, you didn't go to everybody's house and sing. He had events. You go and you go pay to be at the events. So I'm looking at that. I'm looking at events and trying to build that out. Then I have other friends who, like I said, they're working on hydroponics where they're using sunlight to
Mm-hmm.
create vegetables, you know. I have other friends that are looking to teach AI and, you know, go into software development. And so that's what it is. It's trying to find those 7 to 8 different sources of income, even though, and some of my friends are professionals, doctors, lawyers, but they're stepping out of the box. They're looking at other things that can be done and generate income, you know, and that's what it is. Now, the BCG model is a framework, and we can talk more about it, but basically it is a framework that's used by companies to take ideas that they call question marks, move it into what they call stars, and then create cash cows. And maybe what you did before was to create the cash cow, but then you need people within your family now to operationalize it. And that's where project management comes in, where we create the projects and then we help to operationalize it with change management, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
so people like you will help, you know, we can help you and look at what you have and help you to operationalize it by pulling in your family members,
Yeah. Yeah.
keeping it, or you can adopt other kids or other people that are looking for opportunities. In Jamaica, there's lots of people who are looking for jobs. And so there is no reason why you can't get somebody out of UE, out of UTech, very, very qualified, that's just looking for opportunities to feed the table.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so right. That's so true. So I still want to dive a little bit more because into Walcott and Sons, because I know you've been looking at some summer programs,
Yes.
right? And as you said, building out the content and finding persons to kind of operationalize it, etc. Do you
Mm,
want to talk a little bit more about your program in particular and how
yeah.
could persons become a part of it? But tell us first what it is,
Uh,
and how can it be, how can we catch the vision and create events and run with the content?
yeah. So Walcott and Sons is essentially teaching AI and robotics to children. You know, when you
Mm.
look at what's happening with AI in the workspace and what's happening around the world, it's really going to affect our young people more than anybody else. When you think
Mm.
about it, it's going to take a while for AI to replace an experienced project manager. But a
Right.
young project manager coming in, AI may be able to take a chip at it. Or a young programmer. In my early days, I used to be a graphic designer, you know, playing around with graphic design. Now AI can do it fully. And so you need our kids to move up the food chain. And the reason why I start with my children is that when you look at us as, especially as Caribbean folks, our children, their success will determine how happy we will be. You know,
Mm.
we will always, no matter what, mommy will always, daddy will always try to dip into their account to help their children. But if
Mhm.
their children are okay, the weight lifts off your shoulder.
Mhm.
So in Walcott and Sons, we're trying to teach our children now how to take their love for computers and turn it into something productive so that
Mhm.
What we don't want is our kids to sit down all day in the basement or in our living room playing video games, feeling hopeless. We want them to be a prompt engineer. We want them to build robotics. We want them to do all of that. And it really starts with us talking to them and training them about it. And so I've done summer camps before. I've done quite a bit, and some of my students have gone on to work, gone on, one is working at Google, one is gone on to work is Ivy League schools. Some have gotten scholarships, some are at university right now. And so um, it's just about putting that in a context that it's more scalable, not just 20 kids in a room, but reaching the entire world. And so Walcott and Sons is that solution that I've been working on. It's really what I call a legacy project.
Mhm.
Um, and what I mean by a legacy project is every family should have a legacy project, which is a project that you build out over time and it's for your children. So just in case my kids who are here in Canada, they're not working because the job market is rough, they'll always have Walcott and Sons to provide them with an avenue to feed themselves. So that's the legacy. If the Bible says that a good man, right, is a
Mhm.
man who leaves an inheritance for his children's children. But what
Mhm.
happened is that if you leave in today's society, if we leave a piece of land for a family member
Mhm.
or a house for a family member, because of taxes and all of that, it might not necessarily end up being an inheritance that they will use. There's so many people that get land in Jamaica and just don't know what to do with it.
You're right.
So when you write your will and your inheritance, you also have to leave with it a revenue stream, something that can sustain the the asset itself. That's
Mhm.
what happens is it can be a burden, It can cause them to roll their eyes and feel, you leave a piece of land in an area that they
Not
don't
much
know, they
control
don't know
over.
anything about, and they're trying to build a house on it, and it just doesn't work so well because it's not probably the right place. But you have to have that vision now to explain what the land is for,
Mhm.
explain what this is for. And so the Walcott and Sons is that legacy for my sons, you know, and their friends. But it's all about teaching them to be productive and successful. And so it has that drive that parents love.
Yeah.
Now, what is the other part to it is that because I want to spread this whole idea of children being a part of your estate, um, I've also figured out a way to provide Walcott and Sons to anybody who wants to own their own event. So you might have a 20-year-old at home or so doing nothing for the summer. Now
Mhm.
you can say, okay, I want you to help to drive Walcott and Sons and keep that event in your neighborhood. And it does really, really well because a 20-year-old knows just about enough computer to
Mhm.
mentor a 12-year-old.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, sort of. There's some situations where the 12-year-old might be even way ahead. But that bonding between the two,
Mhm.
where the child is old enough, responsible enough to say to the young person, look, focus on your schoolwork. Because the thing
Mhm.
is, the way how children are wired these days, they don't listen to their parents. But if you surround them with, the five people around them,
Mhm.
which reinforce your message, then
Mhm.
they're more likely to say, hey, mommy was telling me something sensible. But they're not usually after they reach 10 or 12, that they don't want to hear from you so much.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what you have to do is get the message through other avenues. So Walcott and Sons is that place, and we're pro university, meaning
Mhm.
we believe that every person should go to university because what you put in your head, nobody can take away, right?
Mhm.
And
Come
so
on.
we really believe in the value of education, especially for a young person. Um, they they'll especially for a male, there is no other time in his life
Mhm.
that he's gonna get an opportunity to just focus on himself for 3 to 4 years. That's a
Mhm.
wonderful time for a young person. And so why would you want to rush into the working environment without getting the proper education? Some statistics show that um, with a computer science degree, for example, you can earn 5 times more than the regular person. And
Mm.
we really want them to go to university. That's a very important pillar. So most of our teachers are university graduates as well.
So, Marlon, I'm listening to you, and I don't know if there's enough echoing of some of the stuff you just shared. Because
Mhm,
what we find, and okay, so you and I are from Jamaica, we
mhm,
notice if you were to go into the classrooms, and even more so into, say, university, you see more females than you see males.
mhm,
Males are sitting on the street. If you ask me, they're good until they get to first form.
mhm,
And somewhere between first form and second form, or first form and third form, I don't know what happened. I don't know if it's the hormones. I don't know what happened, but we seem to lose our young people, or boys in particular, there, right? The formative
mhm.
years of their life. And then what we've noticed is that once they leave high school,
That's it.
that seems to be where it ends,
Mhm,
right? And so you don't find our young men, just especially in Jamaica, pushing, most of them, I should say. And I'm
mhm,
saying most because I think I can say maybe 60 to 70% of our young men who leave high school just kind of just crash out. It's all about, and depending too on the area where they're from, it's kind of, you get caught in the gang, you get caught in
mhm,
thinking that the music industry is what you need to be a part of. You need to be part of the entourage, etc. And so, or you need to be digging out your handmiddle, for want of a better word. But we don't hear this kind of information. We
Sure.
don't. I can't remember hearing this in school that said
Well,
that that,
There,
hey.
there's a new, on that note, there is a new report that came out in March called Lost Boys. It's in the UK.
Mhm,
So that the boys are lost, but they're saying that the Caribbean community is doing much better with the boys than the other communities. Caribbean and Indian communities are doing much better than other communities.
really?
But what I found is that there isn't enough male teachers in the school.
Mm,
And sometimes, many times, the male isn't in the home, you know? And so the propensity, the forces that are attracting them,
mhm,
some of it is not so much the violence, but the fact that here's another male. They're
mhm.
talking to me as another male, and I can't get that at home, and I can't get that at school. The violence sometimes is wrapped up in it, because
Mhm.
unfortunately, the only person that really talk to young males in our society, other than your parents, is a gang, you know? And so, yes, we're trying to turn the corner on that and provide through our school that male, black males especially, mentorship. There's just
Yeah.
not enough. The thing is though that um, what's happening is that if you're a male that's 10 or 12 and you go in Google right now and type,
Mhm,
depending on your background, Google tries to figure out what you're interested in. And so if you type, should I go to university? The
mhm.
algorithm will give you an entirely different result from me who is interested in university. And so the algorithms on the social media it creates your own reality. And so you would hear, oh, you don't need to go to university. We can make a lot of money and da 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 da. But these things, the truth is, I met a doctor once that he was a chancellor. He's a chancellor of the university at that time. And he has his degree probably 50 years ago.
Mhm,
What could you do 50 years ago that would still give you some sort of income? No.
mhm,
That's why I believe that whatever you put in your mind, put in your brain, no one can take away. And every time I meet somebody who didn't go to university, they would tell you, I didn't go to university, no, but I didn't do this, but for boys too, you gave the ratio, but that means that if the boy attend college, then he'll have an opportunity to find a mate very easily because he'll be one in seven, right?
mhm.
So there's another perspective from it. because one of the most important thing a male can do is find a partner. And the best place to find them is in a university, in a sense, you know?
Hmm.
So it's a different spin that we're trying to promote. That if you are a male and you go to university, you will be a rare thing if you're black, and keep going because your opportunities will just come your way. There's no reason for you not to take that advantage if you can, you know?
Interesting. So I decided I would test ChatGPT and
Mm-hmm.
I typed in, I am 12 years old. Should
Mm-hmm.
I go to university?
Yeah.
And it says, that's a great question. Being 12 and thinking about university shows you're really curious and probably ahead in some ways.
Yeah.
So it says, here's the thing. Most people start university around 12 or 18. But if you're exceptionally advanced in a subject and emotionally ready,
Mm-hmm.
some young people do start early. Then it says, before jumping in, it says you ought to consider, are you ready academically? Do you
Mm-hmm.
find schoolwork too easy or crave more challenge? Are
Mm-hmm.
you ready socially and emotionally?
Mm-hmm.
University life isn't just about studying, it also involves being around older students. And lastly, it says, have you explored all your options?
Yeah.
Programs like early college, dual enrollment, or
Exactly.
gifted schools might give you a good balance right now.
Yeah. We are going through an age of the exception. If if your children is exceptionally good,
Mhm.
they will, I mean, if you work at Google, you'll be a millionaire by the time you're 30, right? So if they can dial into their exceptional skill,
Mhm.
they will be ahead of the curve, you know?
Wow, wow.
Mhm.
Marlon, I want to dig into you a little bit because I'm listening to you and, you know, I find you exceptional. I find you exceptional, especially as a male, very, very intelligent. Um, you provoke the thoughts.
Mhm.
What was your childhood like? Did you have a father who supported you in the kind of way that you are seeking to support your children and even adding other children to your estate?
Yes, that's a good question. So I grew up around my stepfather. He was great. He was good. Um, but when I was about 13 or so, he asked me if I wanted to change my name to from what it from the to their family name. And I
Mhm.
decided, let me keep my name, And so my real dad died when I was much younger.
Mhm.
And so one of the reasons why I'm trying to be a good father, like I said, and make sure that my name counts is that, it could have gone the other way. And so that's a deep question and that's a good question. But um I also I also believe that when you lose your father, for example, you
Mhm.
lose the only male in your life that really want you to be better than them. You know,
Mhm.
it's not it's not normal. Hold on a second. It's not normal for a male, even though I have friends who have children, if
Mhm.
they said to me that their child is going to go and buy a Toyota Corolla,
Mhm.
I'm not going to dig into my pocket necessarily and say, no, go and buy a Tundra. I wish them the best.
Mhm.
But your father is the only male alive that will just take that extra step, you know? And
Mhm.
so that's the role of a father. If my children come and say they're going to go to a community college and I can afford it, I'll try and send them to Harvard. But it's only
Mhm.
a father would do that. And so it plays a critical role, I believe, in creating that inheritance. And so um, that's what motivated me to be an excellent father. And unfortunate for me, my first job was to teach at St. George's College.
Mhm.
And I still remember some of those kids. Um, I wasn't much older than them. So some of them were 15, 16, 17, and I was probably 21, 22. Not
Mhm.
much gap. But
Mhm.
many of them were just looking for something that they could do so that they wouldn't be dependent on their parents.
Mhm.
Um, and so when I went to school and college, I realized that in America, a 21-year-old male they have different skills. Either they're a mechanic or a barber, or they can, they have already worked in, some of them worked in stores, And
Mm-hmm.
so a 21-year-old male in America is not necessarily going to come to their mother and ask for lunch money or money to carry somebody out. And that's what I believe that males are looking for. They're looking for learning, but also a way to earn something and be somebody.
Mhm. And they're looking for their independence.
Yeah, and that's important for a male, you know. That's
Yeah.
important for a male. We can't sideline the fact that, you know, 22, 23, 24, and you're still not able to fend for yourself. That is one of the best time in a male life when you want to go out there and hunt and be
Mhm.
successful. And so we
I,
give them that opportunity.
I'll tell you something. So we came here a year ago,
Mm-hmm.
and 6 months in, he would have been 15 then. My 15-year-old said to me, Can
Yeah,
you get my can you get me my work permit so
right.
that I can work? You
Mm-hmm.
know,
It's not a
and
bad thing.
it's not a bad thing. Honestly, it's not a bad thing. And I still wanted to well, we're still working through that part of it, but whatever I can do to get this boy being independent. I mean, he went and he got himself into his track club and
Mm,
swim club. I know he's doing rugby and all of that. And the child is trying to keep himself busy,
yeah.
so it's just the income earning part of it now. And so for me, I said, wow, I like that.
Mm,
I'm raising a young man. As we wrap up, Marlon, I think we've covered quite a bit, the whole matter of, the framework out of poverty. We've covered the whole matter of the estate. But I think I want you to speak to the men. Speak to
mm,
our men and our young boys in particular. And as a matter of fact, before we go there, let's talk about us first as women, the women in,
mm,
in the men's life, the mothers.
mm,
We're wired to do everything.
mm,
How do we back off? And I'm asking this genuinely because, listen, I find myself, Toby, I'm not, married. Mine, it's always working. And I always think I need to get stuff done. So I don't think I create capacity for my husband to do anything. I don't think I create enough capacity for my children to get stuff done. I will give them work to do, and I turn around and be doing the work with them and take over the work. But
mm.
again, I will be saying to them, you need to go to school, you need to do this, you need to do that. But there am I in the midst of it. How do you, and I think maybe every mother can identify, every woman who is a true, serious woman, we get ourselves, we throw ourselves back in there because we think we're the backbone, we're the
Mm.
this, we're the that. From a man's perspective, from your perspective, when should we back off? Seriously, when do we back off and give you a chance to breathe?
Recently I was watching a podcast. It had Wayne Marshall's wife, what's her name?
Mm-hmm.
Tammy Chin,
Mm-hmm.
and it had Mr. Makers on it, and they were saying that they what they like from their husbands
Mm-hmm.
is the gift of service. You know, they've gone past the whole love language and this. They want the gifts of service.
Mm-hmm.
The guy take the car, put gas in the car, and so on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, at the end of the day, that's what a lot of men want to provide. They want to be useful. And so what I found, and this is why they said chores are important.
Mm-hmm.
By giving the child chores, you're showing them that you are a member of the estate. You're a contributing member of the family. And that is very, very important. You know, somebody was explaining that there is a study that showed that has been no nation in the world
Mm-hmm.
that's been very successful if the men aren't on board. And so when you look at it, no matter how you look at the situation where you could have a place where it's pure women that's doing really, really well. But if
Mm-hmm.
the men aren't on board, you can't build a fence high enough to keep out the other elements, right? Men
Mm-hmm.
need to be men. And so we we need to teach our boys how to hunt. you know,
Mm.
work out, be in shape, and go and hunt, 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 hunt. You see somebody you like nowadays, what's happening is you see somebody you like, men are being very nervous. They don't want to walk up to the person. They want to go on Tinder and these different apps.
Mm-hmm.
They need to go up, say what you need to say, and hunt for your livelihood.
Yeah.
Fight for what you want. And, they even found out, somebody was telling me the other day that what they observe is that when the women
Mm-hmm.
carry the children to church,
Mm-hmm.
by the time they're 18, they stop going. But
Mm-hmm.
men carry the children to church, they stay in the church.
Wow.
And so that is where we have a role to play. But in this new society, it's very difficult to figure it all out because now, women are bringing in part of the income stream, but then men like to be of service. And so they need that. They need that, especially at the age of, I'm looking back at the age of 15, 16, 17, 18.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that's the most energetic time of a male's life. Everything is firing, you're full of energy. You- That's the time when you need to learn a skill.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about the skill.
Mm-hmm.
The skill for a male is what they lean on when times get hard. So for me, at an early age, I learned the skill of debate.
Mm-hmm.
And if times get hard, I'm going to debate. I'm going to try and sell a product or do sales or something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If the person is learning at a young age to fire a gun, when times get hard, that's what he's going to lean on. If he's learning to paint a car, when times get hard, he's going to paint a car. And so
Mm-hmm.
those age, you don't want to waste those teenage years. But at the same time, what happens with teenagers is that their frontal lobe
Mm-hmm.
very developed,
Mm-hmm.
and so they still need mommy and daddy around, you know. Because what happened, they did a study and they found out that when they connect the teenagers to they study their brain, if
Mm-hmm.
teenagers get a $200, right?
Mm-hmm.
3 weeks later, they're still excited about it. But if you give it to an adult, we regulate it through our frontal lobe. Um, so we still play that role of, guiding them so that they don't exceed the speed limit or go too far out.
Yeah.
But we have to let them use that creative energy that to do something productive and learn a skill.
Yeah.
I would say teach them a skill, you know.
Mm.
And you'd say what I found, for example, in the summer camp, like I said, is
Mm-hmm.
when the males come in, the girls that were there, we had girls from Immaculate and all that, and then we had some boys that were from JC, KC, and all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, when we asked them to speak, the boys were looking down and I don't know what I want to be. I just like to play video games. And then as soon as I learned coding and I learned a skill, they came alive. Their
Yeah.
voice got deeper. It's like a different child. They got more focused. What happened was it's really funny. So in the beginning of the camp, right,
Mm-hmm.
is would come and the mummies would come and check out the place and make sure it's safe.
Mm-hmm.
And when the kids start to learn, right?
Mm-hmm.
What they do is they go home and show off at home to their fathers, right? And then you would see the fathers start coming and saying, "This boy showing off that he knows how to build a website." Because in every house, the children want to beat their father, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Mm-hmm.
normal banter. And so when the kids getting confident, man, you know, and it wasn't a disrespectful time, but the men left, the boys became men just
Yeah.
by having a skill. They have to have a skill. Use their hands, use their minds to do something. And you won't have much problem after that. You
Yeah.
know, you
Yeah.
don't have much problem after that.
Honestly, as I listened to you a while ago, I said,
Known from the Stewart
from
estate.
the Stewart
What
estate,
a big
listen.
last name you have there, man.
There's a legacy, right?
Next, when you see your son, call your son
Mhm.
from the Stewart estate.
From the Stewart estate. And
And you
I'm
will
going,
be surprised and
right?
shape up.
But I
Mhm.
was thinking, I said to him, normally I don't insist that they watch my videos, but I'm thinking this particular video, once I'm finish editing it, this
Yes.
shall be one that I shall send it in the family group. They
Sure.
need to hear this one. This one, honestly, I don't normally pressure them, or I don't even send it to them. If they want to go watch,
Mom,
they know. Yeah,
you're gonna have to go dress back and let them. Can they drive at the point? No, the kids can't drive yet.
my son drive. He has his G1.
Okay.
So later on this year, he will go for the G2.
All right.
Um, but yeah,
A
I think they need
nervous
to
thing when a child driving, it's very nervous. But you
Here's
need
the
to let
thing.
them drive.
You said something earlier about when the men are on. So because I have a G2, he can't drive when I'm in the car. So he can drive when daddy's in it because daddy has the G.
Right.
And so the couple times that, he's driving, I'm in the back and I'm telling you, I'm driving the car from in the back seat and I'm tempted to say all kinds of stuff. And I have to remember, no, daddy's in the front. Daddy's in the front. I don't want to erode
Right.
his confidence, etc. That's my son. I don't want to erode his confidence. Let me leave it alone. Let daddy take care of it, etc. Keep your
Right.
mouth closed. Keep your mouth closed, you know. And then I said, the time's gonna come when he's gonna drive me. That's later on this year, as a matter of fact.
Right. Right.
Um, so
Right.
I have to prepare myself for that. But like I said, I really want to learn how to back off because, again, one of the things that I'm looking at, Marlon, is I'm an adult
Mm,
and life has shaped me in a particular way, right? In terms of my fears, my
mm,
reservations, etc.
mm, mm,
The lessons I've learned. My
mm,
children have not yet learned their lessons, so to speak. But I want them to go out there and experience life. I don't want them to live life through my eyes, if that makes sense. So
mm,
by being afraid, let's use a typical example, 401. I mean, I'm not there yet as it relates to dealing with 401, but I don't
mm,
want to project my fear on my children, especially my son who is now learning to drive. I want him to be able to comfortably manage himself out
mm.
there and go have his own experience.
You saw what Barack Obama said? She said, parenting is
Mhm,
the only job where you start off as a worker and
mhm.
then you ease into being a consultant. You understand? It's the same.
Parenting.
Yeah, yeah. It's the same thing. We kind of have to back off. And but not too. The thing is though that as it relates to college though, I don't believe in taking your child and throwing me into college. You know? You kind of want that to ease them into college as much as possible. Well, you have to know
Really?
your child,
Why,
but you
why
want
not
to
go
ease
straight to
them
university,
because,
instead of the
because
college?
well, university or college. But
Okay.
what happened is that you don't want to take a child who's been sheltered and pampered and then throw them into these these areas, especially if they didn't grow up in the US or in Canada. You kind
Mm-hmm.
of want to ease them in because, like I said, even though they look like adults, and what's happening too is that the males and females are growing up a lot faster. So even
Mm-hmm.
though they look like adults, they're still growing until they're about 21 before 22 before their brain fully develop. And so
Mm-hmm.
you kind of want to be there at those critical moments, just close enough.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in some areas, you can give them their independence.
Yeah, I'm learning that. Um, the other day
You
my
know
son
what?
came to me, share
Yeah.
something with you. He came and he said he wanted to color his hair. And listen, I was livid. I was not having it.
Mm.
And
Might want him to use the temporary color.
well,
Fun.
actually, so here's the thing. I went to bed. I made my resolution very clear. Hell
Mm,
no. And I
mm,
went to my bed. But then when I got up the next morning, I thought about it and I said, the boy's 16. What am
mm,
I trying to do? What am I really trying to do?
mm,
I have to give this child the kind of guidance and room to discover himself, right?
mm.
Because he's in that self-discovery mode. And so what I did, I called him and we sat down and we had a conversation. I said,
Great.
tell me, why do you want to do this? And I asked him clearly, I said, are you going through a crisis? You
Mm,
know, and he said, no, not at
mm,
all. He just wants to do it. It's just, he cut the
mm.
hair and he wanted to do something else. And then as I thought about it, I said, seriously,
And it's a temporary thing, you
is
know.
there you go. And that's exactly what he said to me. He said, if I don't like it, I can always cut it off, etc.
Mm,
So the matter of raising children, Marlon, the truth is raising. raising babies versus toddlers to teenagers to, what do you call it now, this young adult,
Mm,
it's no
mm,
joke. It's
yeah.
no joke. And I keep telling persons that what we wanted initially were rock-a-bye-bye. We
Mm,
all wanted babies, right?
mm,
We didn't, because the truth is life doesn't prepare us. There's no handbook that tells you that this child at 16, at 15 is going to have this crisis for himself.
mm,
Is going to be, or at 4, is going to be discovering things about his body that he's going to come and ask you, why is his body responding
mm.
that way? And I had that experience, by the way, and stuff. Nothing prepares you.
And it's good that he's coming to you and asking that because, if you don't teach him, somebody else will, you
That,
know.
there you go. There you go.
Do
And it
that.
was those things that, but I will tell you something else. And it tends to happen to us, especially those of us in the church in particular. We allow the church to dictate the pace
Mm,
rather than us allowing life to take form, for want of a better word. So I was concerned. Oh, what are they going to think about Sister Simone's son? Oh,
mm,
him call him here. Lord, him gonna Canada, him loose, him this, him that. What kind of home she a run? And so it was all in my head. I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you. But I had to say, you know what? I can't live my life based on society or the church. I
mm,
have to, because I'm living with it until I can only provide guidance
mm.
and write counsel and pray and leave
Good.
the rest up to God and my son to make the decisions, guided decisions. Yeah.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I'm still learning that area as well, but I
Mhm.
can see that, you know, mummies have a special place in a son's and a child's life. Um, but at the same time, at the end of the day, he's gonna do what he wants to do, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so at this stage, you have to try and find out, help him to find what he wants to do.
yes,
There's
yeah,
not
yeah.
they said the two most important days in a child's life is the day they were born and the day they figure out why, you know?
Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Quite an in-depth, might I say, soul-stirring, mind-boggling, intriguing, kind of conversation with Marlon this evening. I mean, I'm changing my speech. I'm Simone from the Stewart's estate. And
Yes.
we spoke to Marlon from the Walcott estate. And this
Exactly.
evening, on a serious note, I'm putting it into perspective because I've really been thinking about, how do I create wealth? Leave a
Mm,
legacy for my children.
mm,
Fortunate for me, I would have started on that journey. But now I need to pull my children in to understand the estate that I have created and
mhm,
how their contribution to it
mm.
helps to continue, and therefore basically they will then be able to pass it on to their children.
Yeah.
I will share with you, Marlon, that for a while I was worried that I have these visions, and I've gone ahead and created all these things, because especially things that you put in writing, it will always be there.
Mhm,
Royalty would always come from them, etc., and all the other things that I've been creating. And then I said, but my children are not involved. Nobody's involved. Is this thing gonna die with me?
mm.
Etc. And I would have hated to have put in so much work and it just died right here. But you have helped.
If you want to go far, you have to go with other people,
Oh my God.
your own family, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
So there you have it again, ladies and gentlemen. Listen all the way right down to the wire,
mm.
right? You want to go far, you build with other people, pull in the children, pull in the nieces, pull in the nephews, or maybe there's somebody you see.
We're not really children anymore, 16, 18, 19, they're getting
That's
there.
true.
Yeah,
That's true. And it's not only that too, but sometimes we need to pull in the neighbors,
exactly.
pull in the neighborhood children them, because sometimes we see them sitting down, they have nothing to do. They're looking for something to entertain them in a positive way,
Mm.
right? So pull them into the estate. Now, just before we wrap up, Marlon, we didn't talk about where can persons find you so that they can, this workshop that you have coming up.
Yeah.
Um, tell us a little bit, how can persons connect?
Yeah, so I just completed the website, walcottandsons.com. And at the bottom of the website, well, first of all, sign up. There's a free trial. And then also, the cost of the thing is we try to make it very affordable. So we have a package for $49 a month to teach your children, but then there's one that I really trying to promote where it's $365, but it's for the entire year. So it work out to be like $1 a day, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
With that, we're looking to offer the summer camp in it, um,
Mm-hmm.
and keep going. Then there's another one that's coming on stream where you can have a school package,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a school package where you can run your own school.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of take our platform and put your name on it. And then at the
That's like
bottom,
franchising.
yeah, it's like franchising, just like franchising.
Mm-hmm.
Franchising of education, can you imagine that? But STEM
Mm-hmm.
education has been, it hasn't reached every school everywhere. Kids, there are kids who are graduating and they will never learn to program a computer. They will never learn to program a robot. And the thing is, the computer and the robot is taking over the jobs, but the
Mm-hmm.
person who knows how to program them, they're the ones that's going to have the job.
Hey.
And so if you ever get a young person coming into your organization and they don't know nothing about computer, they kind of get cast aside, because you expect them to know these things. And
Yeah.
so we're trying to get them up to speed. Now, how else you can reach me? At the bottom of my website, there's all the social media. Just reach out and say hi. There's a Facebook, there's a TikTok, there's a YouTube. Just reach out and say hi and tell me that you want to reach me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also available on LinkedIn.
Okay.
If you type in Marlon Walcott, you'll see me on LinkedIn as well. Just reach out to me. From LinkedIn, there's a tag there where you can actually schedule a calendar. I open up my calendar
Mm-hmm.
about an hour or two for the week. And so they can book a time and talk to me about what's going on. You know, a
Nice.
lot of children too that are signing up for my program is also on the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm helping parents to help children who are functional but very hyper focused to get into the computer industry as well. And that's
Oh,
something we're looking at, those gifted ones that are being ignored by the schooling system.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're looking at that. So you can reach me in several ways, but the key to it is to go to the website, walcottandsons.com.
Yeah. Yeah. You have a good thing going, I will say to you.
Thank you.
And I encourage you, even as you've encouraged me so often, to push with it, right? You you know that you have a good thing, but
Mm,
we they what you call persons don't know.
yeah,
So
yeah,
get on as many platforms as you can get onto. Um, Start your own podcast,
yeah.
work your YouTube,
I,
work your TikTok,
I will.
right?
I
Push it
promise.
out there, push
I
it,
promise.
Marlon, push it.
I
No need
promise.
to be just, I mean, did you know we chatted for an hour a while ago,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so it means that you're not shy, you have content, you have a lot of stuff that you can talk about,
yeah.
and stuff, and and
I've been
really
silent a bit, but it's time to step out. And
it's time to step out.
that's the podcast will be another one of my income streams.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And
Incurring
the thing
here.
is, those are the trends now. Those are the trends, and you have what to start, right? You talked about the studio that you're building out. That is called, what is it called again? Alex's studio.
Alex Studio, yeah,
Alex
that's
Studio. You have the studio, right? You have the content as it relates to AI. You have the skill behind it. So if you have the skill, you have the content, which is the product. You have the spacing to do it. You have the
exactly,
platform to get it out there.
exactly, exactly,
What else you need? You don't need not more.
exactly.
Social media is all out here with so many people. Your niche is
Mhm.
actually out here waiting on you. So it's
Thank you.
a matter of time now that you get it out there. I must tell you that Uniquely Me is known for birthing persons.
Thank
So
you.
the fact that you're here, it means you're continuing what you have started, right? So it's gonna
Okay.
go far and wide. Thanks again for being here and for
Thank
sharing so authentically and openly with me and with my audience.
Thank you, Simone. Good
You're
to be here.
welcome.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Well,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, I'd love to hear from you. What are your thoughts on what you've heard this evening? Do you subscribe to the whole matter of children should be given more chores, or in Jamaica, give them more work, but careful of how you look at that work, listen back to what we said, and then let me know what are your thoughts on that. And then the whole matter of owning and operating your estate. What are your thoughts on that? Have you ever thought about the fact that you've been given the gift of building an estate, creating and building an estate, and leaving a legacy for your children? The Bible says a good man leaves, he builds an estate, and he leaves it not just for his children, but for his children's
Mhm.
children. I'd love
Yeah.
to hear from you. And guys, of course, you know what to do. Like, share, subscribe, comment. You know exactly what to do. And until next week, see you in my next video.